Our top stories tonight. A merger between Korea's largest mobile messaging service, Kakao, and the country's #2 internet portal, Daum Communications, in a backdoor listing that values the messenger operator at roughly $3 billion. China's top diplomat is in Seoul to discuss North Korea's nuclear threat and to fine-tune the details of a future visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping. And the Thai general who led last week's coup warns of a potential crackdown on people protesting military rule, this after announcing a royal endorsement. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다. 한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 4 p.m. in Bangkok, and 6 on Monday, the 26th of May here in Seoul. Hello, this is Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. In yet another major development in the global chat app wars, Korea's largest mobile messenger service, Kakao Talk, and the nation's #2 internet portal company, Daum Communications, have announced their plans to merge through an equity swap.
Right, this will be the largest merger involving internet-based companies here in Korea and could pose a threat to the nation's biggest search engine, Naver. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Korea's largest mobile messaging service, Kakao Corporation, has agreed to merge with internet company Daum Communications Corporation. When the deal is complete, Kakao will have more than 60% of the equity in the merged company dubbed Daum Kakao and will be valued up to $3.9 billion. The heads of the two companies expect the deal to create a synergy effect as they compete with the country's largest internet portal, Naver Corporation, and its mobile messaging service line. Daum CEO Choi Se-un said Kakao's strong competitiveness in the mobile sector, combined with Daum's contents, will help the company compete in the fast-changing market. But some analysts are skeptical that the marriage will help the company enter the global market.
Kakao is seeking ways to enter the global market just like Naver did through its line service to survive the competition. With this in mind, Kakao is wasting its time and resources through this merger with Daum, which is a local market-driven company.
The unlisted Kakao, which has more than 130 million users, is estimated to be worth $2.3 billion. Daum, which is currently listed on the tech-heavy Kosdaq, is valued at more than $1 billion. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
With just 9 days to go until local elections here in this country, more and more voters appear to be turning their backs on Korea's two biggest political parties and toward independent candidates. Arirang News Kim Young-ge reports on the say these voters will have come June 4th.
The closer we draw to election day, the more apparent it becomes that voters are leaning toward independent candidates, especially in the city of Busan, a conservative stronghold, and Gwangju, the traditional home ground of liberals. Of all voters on election day, nearly 44% are undecided about who they will vote for, according to a survey conducted by mBrain. And of that total, more than half of the respondents said they will vote for independent candidates. This holds extra meaning in the cities of Busan and Gwangju. In the ruling Saenuri Party's home turf of Busan, polls show independent candidate Oh Go-don up by nearly 4 percentage points over the ruling party's Heo Byung-soo in the race for the mayor. Oh's popularity saw a boost after a candidacy merger on May 16th with Kim Young-chun of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy in an effort to unite liberal votes. Over in the race for mayor of Gwangju, right in the middle of the main opposition's home ground, the liberal candidate Yoon Jang-hyun finds himself trailing behind independent candidate Kang Un-tae. The polls show that Kang's polling numbers are double those of Yoon's. Kang withdrew from the main opposition party to run as an independent in protest of party's co-leader An Cheol-soo's influence in the nomination of Yoon. According to the National Election Commission on Monday, some 2.4 million more people will be able to vote in these local elections, up 6.3% from the last ones in 2010. The increase was attributed to the aging and growth of Korea's overall population. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Now, the news last week that President Park Geun-hye accepted the resignations of her presidential security advisor and the nation's intelligence chief caught most political observers off guard. However, given the ever-present threat posed by North Korea, the president is expected to waste little time in selecting the replacements. Meanwhile, her new prime minister nominee An Dae-hee held a press conference about half an hour ago where he vowed to give back to society the roughly $1 million he made in 1 year as a lawyer after retiring as Supreme Court Justice. Choi Yoo-sun reports.
The question on many people's minds is whether both posts will be filled by those from a military background. Both former security advisor Kim Jang-soo and former head of the National Intelligence Service Nam Jae-jun came from the military, both having served as the Army Chief of Staff. Despite the view of some pundits that the hardline stances of the military-dominant security chiefs have further strained inter-Korean ties, the speculation is that President Park will tap the military ranks again for her new security advisor. This amid North Korea's continued military and nuclear threat in the region. Defense Minister Kim Kwan-jin is one of the names reportedly under consideration. As for the next NIS chief, someone from the diplomatic or judicial community who has experience with the spy agency could be nominated. Possible candidates include former spy agency deputy director and current ambassador to Japan Lee Byung-gi and former prosecutor and current ambassador to China Kwon Young-se. Both Lee and Kwon were close aides to the president during the 2007 and 2012 presidential elections. However, the announcements could be delayed as both the ruling and opposition sides have raised concerns President Park's recent nominations for key posts centered too much around figures from the judicial community and Korea's southeastern region. With their approval ratings rising after a recent apology over the ferry disaster and the local elections just a little more than a week away, the pending appointments come at a crucial point. There's also speculation that a reshuffle within the presidential office could occur as early as this week. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
We shift our focus to the investigation surrounding the sunken Seoul ferry disaster. Authorities are convinced they are this close to finding the fugitive owner of the ferry, Yoo Byung-un. They've tracked him to the southern region of the country where they believe he's still hiding out. Our Connie Lee has the details.
It was at this rest stop where one of Korea's most wanted men was last seen. Prosecutors have confirmed that Yoo Byung-un, the de facto owner of the sunken Seoul ferry, was here in the city of Suncheon, about 400 kilometers south of Seoul, up until a few days ago. The married owners of a restaurant and guest house here have been detained on suspicion of helping Yoo evade arrest. Police have also arrested at least 3 others for hindering the hunt for Yoo. Police say all those in custody are members of the Salvation Sect, which is a religious cult led by the ferry owner. With the latest developments, authorities now believe they were very close to finding Yoo. They say he's no longer in Suncheon, but they do believe he's still hiding out somewhere in southern Korea, because his children and several members of his cult are known to own land and businesses there. In the meantime, prosecutors have dramatically increased the cash reward for anyone with information on Yoo's whereabouts. Officials have upped their bounty from $50,000 to $500,000, which is the highest amount Korean authorities have ever offered in such a case. The cash reward for information on his eldest son, Yoo Dae-gyun, has also gone up from $30,000 to nearly $100,000. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Staying here in Korea, the focus in recent days has largely been on improving safety following last month's ferry disaster. But on this Monday, another deadly accident has added to the anguish and uncertainty in Korea. A fire at a bus terminal in the city of Goyang, Gyeonggi-do Province this morning killed 6 and injured 27 others. But the death toll could rise further, with 7 to 8 of those wounded in critical condition. The blaze broke out shortly after 9 a.m. during rush hour in the basement of the station located just northwest of Seoul and was brought under control after about 20 minutes. Authorities have yet to determine the blaze, but firefighters believe welding operations at a construction site in the basement could have played a role.
China's top diplomat is in Seoul on this Monday for talks expected to center around getting North Korea to give up its nuclear program.
What he is also expected to do is to fine-tune the details of his president's scheduled visit to South Korea next month. Our foreign affairs correspondent Hwang Sung-hee has more.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi arrived in Seoul Monday for talks with his South Korean counterpart Yoon Byung-se. This is the Chinese diplomat's first visit to South Korea since taking office in March of last year. North Korea's ongoing threat of a fourth nuclear test is expected to top the agenda in talks, during which the two sides will reaffirm their joint commitment toward Pyongyang's denuclearization and discuss ways to bring the isolated regime back to the negotiating table. At the same time, the officials may fine-tune details of a visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping to Seoul. Xi is expected to make his first trip to South Korea since becoming president as early as next month. Another pending issue on the table is Japan's denial of its historical wrongdoings and its push for collective self-defense. Both nations, major victims of Tokyo's past militarism, have voiced concerns over the Abe administration's pursuit to revise its pacifist constitution without fully recognizing its wartime atrocities. The Chinese foreign minister will wrap up his 2-day stay in Seoul by paying a visit to President Park Geun-hye at the presidential office. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
So, like our Hwang Sung-hee just reported, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is here on his first official visit since taking up the post last year. He is currently in talks with his South Korean counterpart Yoon Byung-se. Now, let's try taking an in-depth look into the issues taking center stage and what else we can expect from the meetings.
We have Dr. Chung Gi-young, research fellow at the Center for International Area Studies at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies, a rather senior research fellow there, joins us live in the studio. Dr. Jung, thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here.
Now, first and foremost, North Korea. This is a topic that Seoul's foreign ministry had announced that it will be topping the agenda between Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and Wang Yi from China. So what do we expect from the two? Do we see anything out of the ordinary coming out from these meetings in jointly tackling North Korea's nuclear program?
I don't think that anything special out of ordinary will come from the meetings between two ministers, but we can predict what they will do by reviewing what they mentioned regarding the pending issues in the past. Well, at a press conference held in March, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi clearly expressed China's foreign policy attitude toward Korean Peninsula by using the expression red line. He said that China's red line is that China will not allow any war or disputes on the Korean Peninsula. And he added 3 more basic principles regarding the issues of Korean Peninsula. Number 1, denuclearization. Number 2, increase the confidence building measures between the two Koreas. Number 3, dialogue is the only method for solving the pending issues. And so China and Korea would express again that they will not allow any nuclear weapons in North Korea, and they object to any possible nuclear tests. And at the same time, I might expect that China would call attention for holding 6+ talks again, and this also goes well with the basic principles of China.
Well, speaking of North Korea, we had a lot of speculations of a 4th nuclear test, and they also had some shelling incidents. Nothing too surprising for us, but it could actually prompt Chinese President Xi Jinping to perhaps pull his schedule to South Korea a bit sooner. And also, what's your view on that and the future of South Korea-Beijing summit in the near future?
Well, it would be possible for Seoul to suggest an earlier than expected visit by President Xi Jinping, but I don't think that the fixed schedule, well, it will be easy to change the fixed schedule. So Minister Wang Yi's visit this time is just a short overnight visit. So the main focus of his visit would be about, well, selecting agendas for the China-Korea summit near in the future. And I expected that the summit will be held near in the future, at least by the end of the next month.
Right, expanding our focus a little bit, largely to the entire Northeast Asian region. Now, China is just as, if not even more, unhappy about Japan's latest announcement and its determination to exercise collective self-defense. Now, do we expect a kind of a joint action or stance being agreed upon between Seoul and Beijing during Wang Yi's visit this time around?
Yes, China is not happy with Japan nowadays, but before answering the question, I would like to make one thing clear. Well, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is known for an expert in Japanese affairs, and he had been the Chinese ambassador to Japan from 2004 to 2007, and he contributed a lot to ameliorating the frozen relationships between China and Japan when Japanese ex-Prime Minister Koizumi visited, well, Yasukuni Wa Shrine. And we should think of why President Xi Jinping appointed an expert in Japanese affairs to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So it is possible to expect that Korea and China together would express strong regrets or concerns over Japanese right of the ship, and they're claiming the, well, right of self-defense, collective self-defense. But it's not easy to assert that China and Korea would agree with announcing a kind of joint declaration or taking equivalent measures, well, regarding the Japanese issues.
Well, last but not least, I have a very difficult question for you. Perhaps your forecast for the diplomatic, political, and military climate of Northeast Asia in the coming days or weeks or months.
Well, the Korean Peninsula has been labeled as the last vestige of Cold War era, but nowadays it seems that the whole world go to the, well, mid-20th century's Cold War old days. And the power shift and the power distribution of the world of nowadays makes the important actors of the world politics headed for the Cold War days. But the new Cold War might be more obvious and explicit in, well, for the great powers to pursue the national interest, as it was initiated as a hegemonic struggle after dumping the musks of ideological musks. So Northeast Asia is the center of the battlefield with a bullet, and we Koreans are in between four superpowers of the world, and the middle power in between, like Korea, well, neither takes any side. Well, it is really dangerous to take just one particular country, for example. Nowadays, nobody talks about the possibility, but we should remember that there is always a possibility of grand compromise between Japan and China, especially at the time of being able to reap great national interest. But it depends on the situation, but we should remember that. And if we are forced to stay neutral, then we should try to be an active pursuer instead of, well, passive onlooker regarding the situation. And it is to start taking initiatives to solve our own problems, including, well, denuclearizing North Korea and fulfilling eventual unification. Yeah.
So definitely, South Korea needs to come up with a highly calculated and sophisticated diplomatic move in order to be maintained as a key player in the Northeast Asian region.
Yes, yeah, we have emphasized that we want to take the role of, well, arbitrator of the region, and well, this kind of, well, taking the role of arbitrator would be good for us to pursue our own national interests.
All right, Dr. Sung Gi-yoon, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, meanwhile, there is another round of talks underway between two other key players in the Northeast Asian region, North Korea and Japan. They're holding government-level talks in Sweden for 3 days starting this Monday.
Right, Tokyo is expected to once again demand an investigation into the issue of Japanese abductees. Pyongyang, meanwhile, will likely call for eased sanctions in return. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Senior officials from North Korea and Japan will sit down for government-level talks on this Monday in Stockholm, following up on the two countries' first talks in more than a year in March. The North Korean delegation will be led by Song Il-ho, its ambassador for handling relations with Japan, while Junichi Hara, chief of the Asian and Oceanian Affairs Bureau at Japan's Foreign Ministry, will lead the Japanese delegation. A range of issues are expected to be discussed during the three-day meeting, but the Japanese abductee issue will likely top the agenda. Tokyo is again expected to call for a re-investigation into the whereabouts of Japanese nationals who were allegedly abducted by Pyongyang in the 1970s and 80s. This time, it reportedly plans to get a promise from the North in the form of a document.
The Abe administration has a strong determination to solve the abductee issue no matter what, and will consider all methods.
North Korea will likely demand Japan to ease sanctions in return.
We plan to negotiate on issues regarding how to implement the North Korea-Japan-Pyongyang Declaration and also any issues that could follow after the implementation.
Attention is also on whether the North Korean delegation will include an official from its state security agency. The agency reportedly played a big role during the visit of then-Japanese Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi to Pyongyang in 2002. Likewise, Japan is also expected to slot in a cabinet official that handles North Korean affairs. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Thailand coup leader General Prayut Chan-o-cha says he now has a royal endorsement from the king to run the politically unstable country and warned of a potential crackdown on people protesting military rule. Dressed in a white uniform and flanked by more than a dozen other military officials, the general addressed reporters in Bangkok.
We will maintain firm control and deal with those who violate the law or use weapons, as well as any protests or anything that will create a restive situation.
He said he aims to hold an election as soon as possible, but gave no time frame for a vote. The military, of course, overthrew the government last Thursday after months of debilitating and at times violent confrontations between the populist government of former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra and the royalist establishment.
Korea's finance minister is calling on the government and the private sector to work hand in hand to speed up the pace of the economic recovery. Hyun Oh-suk made the remarks Monday at a meeting with other policymakers, where he also asked businesses to advance investments. He said that while domestic consumption is picking up after the Seoul ferry disaster, strong momentum is critical. Private spending plunged last month in the wake of the ferry sinking. Minister Hyun went on to say that the government will continue to cut red tape to boost job creation and investment. Longer lifespans coupled with a frozen retirement age have Koreans spending less on a day-to-day basis than they did 10 years ago, all to make sure they have enough saved up for the twilight years or the golden years. A survey by the Korea Development Institute shows that the average spending index dropped for all age groups in the 10-year span ending in 2013. The average age for the head of the household also went up over that time from 44 to 48. Those reaching retirement age were the most likely to skimp on their daily expenditures as they plan for life after retirement. The institute says the government should come up with measures to extend the retirement age and reduce the costs of private education, as it's taking up a large chunk of household expenditures for families with school-aged children.
Well, 12 years ago, Buddhist temples in Korea began inviting foreigners and visitors in to give them the sense of what it's like to live as a monk or a nun. Today, the Temple Stay program continues to offer a diverse set of meditation and cultural programs. But as our Park Ji-won reports, it's getting a new look to meet the changing needs of society.
Since the Temple Stay program was first introduced in 2002, it's become one of Korea's most representative cultural programs, especially for foreign tourists who want a unique experience during their time here. With the popularity of the program rising, the number of people participating in the Temple Stay program has increased about 7 times over during the past 12 years.
And to meet the new demands of people living in this ever-changing society, the Jogae Order, the largest Buddhism sect in Korea, has revamped its Temple Stay program. A total of 13 pilot temples around the country will launch the new programs starting next month. They will focus on tapping into 4 themes: constellation, health, emptiness, and vision, and are composed of diverse new routines from walking meditation under the moon and music therapy to mountain climbing and yoga, each according to its theme. However, other key routines that have been staples of the temple stay program, like Zen meditation, eating the meals a monk might, and tea ceremonies, will remain unchanged.
Temple stay program started when Korea hosted the World Cup in 2002. Many people have found comfort and happiness at temples. We are now trying to make the program more systematic based on the 4 new themes.
The Joge Order has also launched a new line of stationery products inspired by the hundreds of traditional Korean patterns found on temples. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, I think I need some help from the Temple Stay program, but let's go to check on the weather and see how perfect a day the weather could be for our constellation. Michelle.
Well, the sky is free of clouds, but not of pollution right now.
Well, how bad is it?
Well, currently, along with the yellow dust, the fine dust level is up to 3 to 4 times higher than the standard levels now. Seoul at 110 micrograms, Daegu at 132, and down south it's 280 range. Now, the yellow dust will stick around through tonight, but it looks like things will clear up by tomorrow morning. Now, to the weather, it's going to be hot again on Tuesday with highs in some areas reaching up to 33 degrees rather. Going over to our readings, Seoul will start off the morning at 16 before reaching up to 28 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 33 and 26 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops out at 27, while Mangungang tops out at 16. Now that's all I have at this moment. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast.
Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.